Hello again and welcome to the Daily Templar Report and me, you know me, your guest presenter, Jim Dowson. I've been a guest presenter for a long time. Well, you know what happens, why I'm a guest presenter for so long? Because the media, once they get a hold of somebody, make their lives a living hell. Turn up at the kid's school, do all this, blah, blah, blah. I've had it all, so I'm impervious to it all. That's why they keep me as the guest presenter. I'm not supposed to be the presenter. We have much cleverer people. Much more handsome people, much more intellectual people than me, and people who can speak proper English. However, I'm it because they already know me. And today we've got a treat for you. We have Mr. Griffin in the room. Are you there, Mr. Griffin?
I am Mr. Dawson here and ready
Excellent.
to go.
And we're going to be talking about some stuff today. Some of it. So we're going to have a look at Brexit first, what's going on there. And then we're going to go over to Purge because we have to bring you stuff about the vaccine. The vaccine. Scary stuff. It's COVID nonsense. So we'll go over to that because it wouldn't be allowed on YouTube. I don't think so. They would have a meltdown. So before we start, let's just get a wee bit of scripture in us. We're in Proverbs. Oh, what a wonderful passage, part of the Bible this is, Proverbs. It's fantastic. So we're in chapter 24 today. And basically this is talking about, sometimes you look and you see these rotten, filthy swines, nasty people, cads as they would call them in the old day, bounders. And they're very rich and everything seems to be going great for them. And some people are envious of them. Well, don't be. Listen. Chapter 24, verse 1. Be not thou envious against evil men, neither desire to be with them, for their heart studieth destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. Through wisdom is a house builded, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Now, not just talking here materially, but it does mean materially as well. It can mean materially, but it's talking mainly spiritually. I know a lot of rich guys who are crooks. I've known them, grew up with them. They're miserable. You say, no, they're not really. No, their lives are a nightmare. Bad money doesn't go anywhere. That's an old saying my granny used to say, bad money's worth nothing. And that's a fact. And you know it yourself in your own life. So do not be envious of evil people, because their end is assured thereof. Amen. And we know the Lord will add his blessing to this, the public reading of his infallible word. Now, before I forget, because I've got a memory like a sieve, tomorrow's Thursday. Are you still all right, techie brother? Yep. We're going to have a very special guest, much, much prettier than Mr. Griffin, although some consider him a rather fetching gentleman, as he ages very well like a fine wine. But we're going to have Miss Jada Franson, leader of the British Freedom Party, in the room tomorrow, personally in the room, actually in this room. Yes. And, of course, Mr. Griffin's got a tie-in there because he's the editor of the Britannia. That's the official newspaper of that party. So it's all rather incestuous. But there we are. So we'll bring Jade on. She can tell she's been up to a lot of mad stuff. She's been to Scotland, the Parliament, doing all this kind of stuff. Real time action. Not like these other so-called political groups who exist only online. This woman's on the streets, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see that tomorrow. And please remember that. Set everything in your diary. Thursday, we'll have Jada Franson in the room. Okay. Let us bring Mr. Griffin. And Mr. Griffin, what would you like to talk to the good people of the Templar Order of today?
Well, Jim, let's start off with Brexit, which we all thought finally perhaps really was a done deal. It was going to come through. You might remember me talking a few months ago now, saying that it was becoming fairly obvious that there'd been a change really in the people running the Conservative Party, and that what you could call the Atlanticist faction was in charge. So therefore there was now a serious possibility of getting Brexit because there's people within that faction who really, they're there for the interests of the deep state and the corporations of the United States, and for them the European Union was an enemy. So it did appear for a while as though they might have got the upper hand, and that we really were going to get something like the Brexit that so many of us worked for and millions voted for. Now you look at it and you have to say it's all up in the air again. Over the last week or so, we've seen a complete purge of the levers in and around Boris Johnson. Not just Cummings and one or two others, the unelected bureaucrats, the advisors and so on, but also of particular note, Michael Gove appears to be very radically sidelined in the new dispensation in Downing Street. And Gove as a key man with the Henry Jackson Society Policy Exchange. These are the neocon think tanks. So with him being out, you have to think that Boris Johnson's very close to, if he hasn't, well, he's probably already down the path of going back to his instinctive and probably paid Remain position, and that will now in the final stages of Brexit get some negotiation, and at the end of it, what is genuinely a sellout, and we will be back to where we were, saying we might leave in name, we won't leave in reality. We'll lose what tiny shred of influence Britain had over the European Union, but we'll still be run by it. I think we're very close to seeing that emerging, and if the public are shocked and horrified, well, so what? Because they can't leave their home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite shocking. But I never thought for a minute, and if you remember back, Mr. Griffin, to the day after the Brexit election, I made a video. Should have put a clip on here. I made a video saying it will never, ever happen. They will cause a war rather than allow Brexit to proceed. Now, they've maybe not caused a war, but they've maybe got this thing called COVID. I could look, the reality is this. Britain might not be what we once were. But you take Britain out of the European Union, it's over, it's finished, it's dead, it's gone. Well, stagger on a wee well with the strength of the Germans, but that's it. Germany and Britain were the European Union. We were the powerhouses, the money people. You take Britain out, there is no European Union. So you're talking about a geopolitical shift of a scale, the Holy Roman Empire days, massive. And I thought they will do anything. They will kill, and they will kill millions rather than risk breaking up the European Union. So I think that's what we're seeing. It's quite strange, and I'm not against the Germans. I like the Germans better than the French, to be honest with you. But we had a guy the other day there, some guy that recently joined, and he's threatening to resign because we did a 2-minute silence. I don't have my poppy on the day for remembering Britain's victory over Germany and saying it was very jingoistic and all the rest of it, and celebrating that. Well, let me just quickly, Mr. Griffin, before we go, because you were with us, let me tell you, the Templars go most years to the battlefields, and we lay wreaths for the British and Commonwealth war dead, we lay wreaths for the Americans, and we go to the German cemeteries and lay wreaths for the German soldiers. Yes, am I right, Mr. Griffin?
Indeed,
yes.
So.
However, I am a Brit. My father went to war. My grandfather went to the First War, my father to the Second War. And we were victorious. We beat the Germans. And am I jingoistic? You better believe I'm jingoistic. You better believe it. It's always good when you win at something. And that's it. Was these wars necessary? No, they were not. But anyway, it is what it is. I can't change it. But to suggest that we're some way anti-German, it's nonsense. I guarantee I've been to more German graveyards than this German guy's been to, because they don't go. They forget about their war dead. So utter nonsense. We'll hear no talk of it. And there should be no more brothers' wars, but don't tell me not to remember the British war dead, because there is not a force on God's earth that would ever stop me going to the cenotaph. I've signed myself out of hospitals with a nightgown on in minus 10 degree cold weather to stand at war memorials. So don't be telling me not to remember the war dead and wear my poppy, because it ain't going to happen. And if you think you need to resign with that, goodbye. Arrivederci. All right. Sorry, Mr. Griffin. Let's go on.
Yes. So, I absolutely agree with all of that, Jim. And I think that, as you say, they do anything to stymie Brexit as a really meaningful thing. We're close to that. I don't for 1 minute believe that the British government created COVID as a worldwide issue, has inspired the lockdown madness around almost all the world, just to be able to ditch Brexit without anyone really noticing or being able to do anything about it. But it's one of those things, the minute some kind of crisis develops, however it's caused, then people in power will look for and will find ways to take advantage of that crisis. And we can see that going on there. And on that subject, I want to move on a little bit to in coming out actually in the papers. So that's particularly good. So this isn't from the secret conspiracy theorists and all the rest of it. It's now in the mainstream press, including the Tory right-wing press, the Daily Mail, and so on. Just the last 24 hours, really, lots started to come out about the stunning levels of sleaze involved in with our government, and so many of these politicians and top bureaucrats and health advisors and so on being completely in bed with the pharmaceutical companies and standing to make enormous fortunes. We're not talking about 100,000 quid here or there. We're talking about vast fortunes out of the crisis that they created through the handling of a middle-level cold flu virus. Give you one example, Rishi Sunak, who is not the worst of them by any means. He's the voice within the Conservative government who is actually more than anyone saying we need to hold on here. We shouldn't be wrecking the entire economy and destroying the social and the health fabric of the nation over this crisis. But even the best of them in this, it's just come out that a hedge fund that he founded has £500 million invested in Moderna, which is the pharmaceutical company producing the main vaccine which the British government has committed to buying. And its value shot up 5 or 6-fold. So Rishi Sunak's hedge fund has shot up in that kind of value. We are talking vast billions and billions of pounds and dollars that these people are feathering their own nest with.
Doesn't surprise me, isn't it awful? When these people make billions the way we make spaghetti, it's just always too much of it. But these people don't care. Listen, I wouldn't have that big a problem with these people making these vast sums of money if they were behaving like the philanthropists of the Victorian age. You know, I grew up in a town. I was in a library every single day built by Andrew Carnegie, who did all the steelworks on the what do you call that place where Donald Trump was fighting? Pittsburgh, all the steelworks up there were owned by Andrew Carnegie, a Scotsman. But he then spent the last 20 years of his life trying to get rid of the money building libraries and public swimming baths for cleanliness and all that. But these guys, they don't do nothing. Look at them. They don't do nothing. The only person that does it is Bill Gates, and what he's doing is try to kill us all. So they don't do anything for mankind because Christianity's gone. So they don't have this altruistic motivation that billionaires had in the past. So I think it's an obscenity, and I think, you know, being involved with government where you've got a finger in every pie here it's not good enough. And that's why I think, personally, my opinion is you shouldn't be allowed into Parliament or Congress or any other public position unless you're 50 years old. And you must have served at least 3 years in the military. If that happened, it would be incredible. There'd be no more troubles in any of our countries. So you must be at least 3 years military experience and a minimum of 50 years old. Oh, and by the way, male. Oh, we didn't get that.
Oh.
Now, are we ready to go over to purge, Mr. Griffin? Because I know you've got tasty stuff.
It's not going to be ready to go over the purge, Jim. We're going to need to go over the purge because we want to talk about some things which are YouTube.
We're going to talk about vaccines. So we can't talk about it. We're going over to purge. Okay, well, I'll do the countdown, brother, because I quite like that. Okay, you ready, folks? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're over. Right, Mr. Griffin. Let's get the jackets off now. Let's get into this.
Let's get